In the winter of 1943, the German war machine was starving. Allied bombing had destroyed rail lines, bridges, and supply depots across occupied Europe. Synthetic fertilizer factories, which used the same Haber-Bosch process that produced explosives, had been redirected entirely to munitions. Every gram of ammonium nitrate went into bombs instead of farmland. German agricultural output collapsed. Crop yields fell 40% in a single season. Soldiers were rationed to 1,500 calories. Civilians received less. Children in Berlin were developing rickets and scurvy, diseases that hadn't been seen in Germany since the Middle Ages. The Reich's agricultural ministry was desperate. They had no synthetic fertilizer, no phosphorus imports, no potassium shipments from mines that had been bombed into rubble. Every conventional input that modern farming depended on had vanished overnight. A soil scientist named Dr. Julius Hensel had predicted this exact catastrophe decades earlier. In 1894, Hensel had published a book called Bread from Stones. The title was not a metaphor. Hensel had spent 20 years proving that crushed rock, ordinary stone ground into fine powder, could replace every synthetic fertilizer ever manufactured. He had conducted hundreds of field trials across Germany and Austria, side-by-side comparisons. Same soil, same seeds, same water. One plot received synthetic fertilizer, the other received nothing but finely ground rock dust. The rock dust plots matched or exceeded the chemical plots, every single time. Hensel's explanation was simple and devastating to the chemical industry. Soil is made from rock. Every mineral that plants need originally came from stone that weathered over millions of years. When we farm soil without returning minerals, we mine it until nothing remains. Synthetic fertilizers replace 3 nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. 3 out of over 70 minerals that plants require for full health. We were starving our crops of 67 minerals while force-feeding them 3, and wondering why food was becoming less nutritious every decade. Hensel's book sold thousands of copies. Farmers across Europe began experimenting with rock dust. Results confirmed his research. Yields increased, crop health improved, pest resistance strengthened. The food tasted different, better. The way people remembered food tasting when they were children. The German chemical industry responded with the full weight of its economic power. BASF, Bayer, and the chemical conglomerate that would later become IG Farben used their political connections to have Hensel's book suppressed. Copies were bought and destroyed. His research was attacked in industry-funded journals. His reputation was systematically demolished. By 1900, Hensel died in obscurity. His book was out of print. His research was forgotten. The chemical fertilizer industry had eliminated its greatest threat. And then the war came, and the fertilizer vanished, and German scientists, desperate to feed a collapsing nation, went searching through old agricultural archives for anything that could grow food without chemicals. They found Hensel's buried research. In 1943, German agricultural stations began emergency trials with rock dust on depleted farmland: basalt, granite, glacial gravel. Any stone that could be crushed was ground to powder and spread on fields that synthetic fertilizer could no longer reach. The results matched everything Hensel had documented 50 years earlier. Crop yields recovered, not partially, substantially. Fields that had produced nothing without chemical inputs grew robust harvests from crushed stone. The program expanded across occupied territories. Rock dust was cheaper than any alternative. Stone was everywhere. Crushing equipment existed in every quarry. The raw material was literally the ground beneath their feet. The war ended before the program could be fully documented. Allied forces captured German agricultural records. The rock dust research was filed, classified, and forgotten. Not because it failed, because the Allied nations had their own chemical fertilizer industries. And those industries had their own plans for the post-war world. Today, American agricultural soil has lost 85% of its mineral content since 1900. The food you eat contains a fraction of the nutrition your grandparents' food contained. The USDA's own data shows that you would need to eat 8 oranges today to get the same vitamin A that 1 orange provided in 1950. 8 oranges to equal 1. The minerals are gone from the soil. They were mined out by a century of farming that replaced 3 nutrients and ignored 67 others. And the solution? The same solution that Hensel proved in 1894 and German wartime scientists confirmed in 1943, sits in every quarry and gravel pit in America. Exposed, available, exposed, almost free, and completely absent from every garden center, farm supply store, and agricultural extension program in the country. In this video, we are opening a file on the most thoroughly suppressed soil amendment in modern history. A substance as old as the earth itself, a method that restores every mineral your soil has lost, and the chemical industry campaign that buried it twice, once in 1900 and again in 1945, because rocks you can pick up for free threaten a $200 billion empire. If this knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves what they tried to erase. The vault is open. The bread from stones. They burned. Julius Hensel was not a radical. He was not a mystic. He was a classically trained German chemist who had studied under some of the finest scientific minds in Europe. He began his career in the 1870s, the same decade that Justus von Liebig's mineral theory of plant nutrition was revolutionizing agriculture. Liebig had identified nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium as the three primary nutrients plants needed. The chemical industry seized on Liebig's work and began manufacturing synthetic versions of these three elements. Hensel accepted Liebig's science, but he asked a question that Liebig never pursued. What about the other 67 minerals? Plants contain over 70 different mineral elements: calcium, magnesium, iron, manganese, zinc, copper, boron, molybdenum, selenium, silicon, cobalt. Dozens more. Each plays specific roles in plant health, disease resistance, and nutritional value. Synthetic fertilizer addressed three. It ignored the rest. Hensel reasoned that soil fertility was not just about nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It was about the complete mineral spectrum that rocks release as they weather over geological time. Farming removes those minerals with every harvest. Synthetic fertilizer replaces almost none of them. He began grinding rocks: basalt from quarries near his home in Saxony, granite from the mountains, limestone from local deposits. He ground them to fine powder using the same mills that processed grain. He applied the rock dust to test plots alongside conventional synthetic fertilizer plots. He documented everything with the precision of a trained chemist. Soil tests before and after, plant measurements at every growth stage, yield weights at harvest, nutritional analysis of the harvested crops. The results were consistent across hundreds of trials. Rock dust plots produced yields equal to or greater than synthetic fertilizer plots. The plants were healthier. Pest damage was reduced. Disease incidence dropped. Root systems were more extensive. The crops stored better after harvest. But it was the nutritional analysis that should have changed agriculture forever. Crops grown in rock dust contained dramatically higher mineral concentrations than crops grown with synthetic fertilizer. Iron levels were elevated, calcium was higher, magnesium was higher. Trace elements that synthetic fertilizer did not contain were present in the rock dust crops, because the rock dust provided them. The food was more nutritious, measurably, testably, documentably more nutritious, grown with crushed rocks that cost a fraction of synthetic chemicals. Hensel published Bread from Stones in 1894. The book detailed his methods, his results, and his conclusion that rock dust could replace synthetic fertilizer entirely while producing more nutritious food at lower cost. The chemical industry could not allow this book to survive. BASF was already generating massive revenue from synthetic fertilizer production. The company that would later merge into IG Farben, the same IG Farben that would manufacture Zyklon B during the Holocaust, used its economic and political influence to destroy Hensel's credibility. Industry-funded reviewers attacked his methodology. His book was removed from distribution channels. Copies were purchased in bulk and destroyed. Within a decade of publication, Bread from Stones had effectively been erased from the scientific record. Hensel died in 1903, forgotten, discredited, proven right by every study conducted since. The mineral collapse nobody talks about. In 1936, the United States Senate received Document 264. It was a report on American soil conditions that should have triggered a national emergency. The document stated that American farm and range soils were depleted of minerals, that the foods grown on these soils were mineral deficient, that people who ate these foods could not obtain adequate mineral nutrition regardless of how much they consumed. The report was entered into the congressional record. Then it was ignored. 80 years later, the data has only gotten worse. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition in 2004 compared USDA nutrient data from 1950 and 1999. The researchers analyzed 43 common garden crops. They found statistically reliable declines in 6 key nutrients. Protein declined 6%, calcium declined 16%, phosphorus declined 9%, iron declined 15%, riboflavin declined 38%, vitamin C declined 20%. These are averages across 43 crops. Individual crops showed even more dramatic declines. Broccoli lost 50% of its calcium, watercress lost 88% of its iron, collard greens lost 84% of their magnesium. The study's author, Dr. Donald Davis at the University of Texas, attributed the decline primarily to soil mineral depletion. Modern agricultural practices, focused exclusively on yield volume, had stripped soils of the broad mineral base that produces nutritious food. A follow-up study using British data showed identical patterns. Mineral content of British fruits and vegetables had declined 20 to 76% between 1930 and 1980. The pattern is global. Soil minerals are being mined out by farming systems that replace 3 elements and remove 70. This is not a subtle problem. This is a mathematical certainty. Every harvest removes minerals from soil. If those minerals are not returned, the soil contains less. The next harvest removes more. The soil contains even less. The food grown in that soil contains less nutrition with every passing decade. Synthetic fertilizer accelerates the problem. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium drive high yields. High yields extract more minerals per acre. More minerals leave in the harvest. Fewer remain in the soil. The fertilizer that produces more food produces less nutritious food. The supplement industry generates $50 billion annually in the United States alone, selling mineral pills to people eating mineral-deficient food grown in mineral-depleted soil. The supplements exist because the food no longer provides what bodies require. Rock dust returns the full mineral spectrum to soil. Every mineral removed by harvesting can be replaced by spreading crushed stone that contains those same minerals in the same forms that soil originally derived them from. The problem is depletion. The solution is remineralization. The solution has been available since 1894. The solution has been suppressed for 130 years. The German war trials that proved Hensel right. When wartime desperation forced German scientists to re-examine Hensel's buried research in 1943, they approached it with skepticism. 50 years of chemical industry propaganda had labeled Hensel a crank. His ideas were considered debunked. The scientists had no choice. They had no fertilizer. They had millions of hungry people. They had rocks. Agricultural stations across Germany conducted emergency remineralization trials. The protocol was simple because simplicity was all they could afford. Crush local stone. Spread it on depleted fields, plant crops, measure what happened. Dr. Hans Peter Rusch, an Austrian physician and soil researcher, documented the most extensive wartime trials. He applied basalt rock dust to fields in Austria that had been farmed with synthetic fertilizer for decades and had declined in productivity despite increasing chemical inputs. The basalt fields recovered. Yields increased 30 to 50% in the first season. By the second season, the improvements were even more dramatic. Soil that chemical fertilizer had been failing to maintain was responding to crushed rock as if it had been waiting for exactly those minerals. Rusch documented something else that chemical fertilizer never produced. The soil biology changed. Earthworm populations exploded in rock dust plots. Microbial activity increased measurably. The soil developed structure and tilth that decades of chemical farming had destroyed. The rock dust was not just feeding plants, it was feeding the entire living ecosystem of the soil. Rusch continued his research after the war. He published extensive documentation of remineralization effects on soil biology, crop health, and food quality. His work influenced the organic farming movement in German-speaking countries for decades, but his research never crossed the Atlantic. The post-war American agricultural establishment was committed to the chemical model. American chemical companies had emerged from the war with massive production capacity and political influence. They were not interested in research proving that rocks outperformed their products. The German wartime data was captured by Allied forces, cataloged, filed, and never acted upon. The rock dust research joined Hensel's suppressed book in the archive of agricultural knowledge that the chemical industry preferred to keep forgotten. The science of why rocks feed, soil better than chemicals. Synthetic fertilizer delivers nutrients in soluble chemical form. The nutrients dissolve in soil water instantly. They are immediately available to plant roots. This sounds like an advantage. It is a catastrophic flaw. Soluble nutrients flood the root zone all at once. Plants can absorb only a fraction of what is applied. The excess washes through the soil with the next rain, into groundwater, into streams, into rivers, into the ocean. The United States Geological Survey estimates that 50 to 70% of applied nitrogen fertilizer leaves the field without ever entering a plant. 50 to 70% wasted, polluting waterways, creating algal blooms, generating ocean dead zones. And the farmer pays for every wasted pound. Rock dust operates on an entirely different principle: slow release over geological time. When finely ground stone enters soil, it does not dissolve instantly. Minerals are released gradually through weathering. Soil acids, microbial activity, root exudates, and moisture slowly break down rock particles and liberate nutrients over months and years. The release rate matches plant demand naturally. When biological activity is high and plants are growing rapidly, weathering accelerates and nutrients become available faster. When activity slows in winter, release slows too. The system self-regulates without management. No nutrient flooding, no nutrient washing, no pollution, no waste. The minerals enter the soil slowly, are held by soil particles and organic matter, and become available to plants on nature's schedule rather than a chemical company's application calendar. But the mineral spectrum is the real revolution. Synthetic fertilizer contains 3 to 5 nutrients at most. NPK, sometimes with added calcium or sulfur, 3 to 5 elements out of over 70 that plants utilize. Basalt rock dust contains over 70 mineral elements in naturally balanced proportions, the same proportions that originally created fertile soil through millions of years of geological weathering. Silicon, calcium, magnesium, iron, manganese, zinc, copper, cobalt, molybdenum, boron, selenium. Every trace element that plants evolved to access from stone-derived soil. Plants grown with full mineral access are fundamentally different from plants grown with 3 nutrients. Their cell walls are stronger because silicon is available. Their immune systems are more active because zinc and copper are present. Their photosynthesis is more efficient because manganese and iron are abundant. Their nutritional value is higher because every mineral that human bodies need is present in the food. The chemical industry sells a 3-ingredient diet for soil and calls it complete nutrition. Rock dust provides the full buffet that soil actually requires. The difference shows in every harvest. The remineralization experiments, they could not discredit. In 1982, a former telecommunications executive named John Hamaker self-published a book called The Survival of Civilization. Like Hensel before him, Hamaker argued that soil remineralization with rock dust was essential to agricultural sustainability and human health. Unlike Hensel, Hamaker connected remineralization to climate change. He argued that mineral-depleted soils produced weakened forests that were vulnerable to disease and fire, that dying forests released carbon rather than absorbing it, that remineralizing soils would strengthen forests and increase carbon sequestration. The book was dismissed by mainstream science as alarmist, but the agricultural claims prompted researchers to investigate. In the 1980s and 1990s, a series of controlled studies validated what Hensel and Hamaker had claimed. Research at the University of Queensland in Australia tested basalt rock dust on tropical soils. Crop yields increased 20 to 40%. Soil mineral content increased across the full spectrum. Plant health improved measurably. Studies in Brazil applied rock dust to degraded Cerrado soils. The Cerrado is one of the most mineral-depleted agricultural regions on Earth. Soybean yields increased 15 to 30%. Maize yields increased similarly. Soil pH stabilized. Mineral availability improved across dozens of elements. The Brazilian government was sufficiently impressed to launch a national remineralization program called Rochegem. Brazilian agricultural law now officially recognizes rock dust as a soil amendment. It is the only major country to do so. In Scotland, experiments at the Macaulay Land Use Research Institute tested glacial rock dust on degraded upland soils. Tree growth rates increased 20 to 30%. Grass production improved. Soil biology responded dramatically, with earthworm populations increasing threefold. A 10-year study published in the journal Science of the Total Environment in 2020 applied basalt rock dust to agricultural fields in the United Kingdom. The results confirmed enhanced weathering rates, increased crop yields, and significant carbon dioxide removal from the atmosphere. The carbon sequestration finding is critical. When rock dust weathers in soil, the chemical process that releases minerals also absorbs CO2 from the atmosphere. The carbon is converted to stable carbonate minerals that remain in the soil permanently. Rock dust improves soil fertility and removes atmospheric carbon simultaneously, just as biochar does, just as every suppressed soil amendment seems to do. The pattern is consistent. Solutions that address multiple crises simultaneously are the solutions that receive the least attention. 15 countries have now conducted peer-reviewed remineralization studies. The results are consistent across tropical, temperate, and boreal environments. Rock dust works. The research cannot be discredited because it has been replicated too many times in too many countries by too many independent researchers. The chemical industry cannot claim the science is flawed. They can only ensure you never hear about it. The nutrition crisis, growing in your garden. The mineral depletion of agricultural soil has created a public health crisis, hiding in plain sight. You can eat perfectly organic vegetables, fresh fruits, whole grains, balanced meals planned by nutritionists using government guidelines, and still be mineral deficient. Because the food itself is mineral deficient, you cannot get minerals from food that was grown in soil that doesn't contain them. Magnesium deficiency affects an estimated 50% of Americans. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. Muscle function, nerve function, blood sugar regulation, blood pressure regulation, bone formation. Zinc deficiency affects an estimated 12% of Americans and up to 40% of the elderly. Zinc is critical for immune function, wound healing, and DNA synthesis. Selenium deficiency has increased as soil selenium levels have declined. Selenium is essential for thyroid function and antioxidant defense. Low selenium levels are associated with increased cancer risk. Iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency worldwide. It causes anemia, fatigue, and impaired cognitive function. It affects 2 billion people globally. These are not rare, exotic mineral deficiencies. These are common minerals that food used to provide in adequate quantities. The soil provided them to plants. Plants provided them to humans. The cycle worked for the entire history of agriculture until we stopped returning minerals to soil. The supplement industry profits enormously from this crisis. Americans spend $50 billion annually on supplements. Mineral pills manufactured in factories to replace minerals that food no longer contains because soil no longer contains them. The entire supplement industry is a tax on depleted soil. You pay for food that doesn't nourish you, then pay again for pills to compensate. Rock dust applied to agricultural soil restores the mineral spectrum that produces nutritious food. Studies consistently show elevated mineral content in crops grown with remineralized soil. The food provides what bodies need without supplementation. But there is no profit in solving the problem at the source. Supplement companies need mineral-depleted food. Fertilizer companies need mineral-depleted soil. Pharmaceutical companies need mineral-deficient patients. 3 industries, hundreds of billions in combined revenue, all dependent on soil that is missing most of its minerals, and all threatened by a bag of crushed rocks. How to remineralize your soil for almost nothing. The method is so simple it feels like it cannot possibly work. That simplicity is exactly why the chemical industry has been able to dismiss it. People have been trained to believe that effective solutions must be complex, expensive, and require expert guidance. Crushed basalt is the most effective and widely available rock dust. Basalt is volcanic rock that contains the broadest spectrum of minerals in naturally balanced proportions. It is the most common rock type on Earth's surface. Contact your local quarry or landscape supply company. Ask for basalt screenings or basalt rock dust. The material is the fine powder that remains after crushing operations. Most quarries consider it waste. Prices range from $30 to $80 per ton. 1 ton covers approximately 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. Compare $40 per ton, applied once, to $400 per ton of synthetic fertilizer, applied every year. If basalt is unavailable, granite dust works effectively. Glacial gravel dust contains a mix of rock types and provides broad mineral diversity. Azomite, a commercial product mined from ancient seabeds in Utah, provides over 70 trace minerals and is available in smaller quantities for garden use. Application is straightforward. Spread rock dust evenly over soil at a rate of 150 to 500 pounds per 1,000 square feet for initial remineralization. Work it into the top few inches of soil if possible. Water it in. Finer particles release minerals faster. Coarser particles release minerals over longer periods. A mix of particle sizes provides both immediate and long-term mineral availability. For best results, combine rock dust with compost or organic matter. The biological activity in compost accelerates rock weathering. Microbial acids dissolve mineral surfaces faster than water alone. The combination of rock dust and compost creates a mineral-rich, biologically active soil amendment superior to either component alone. Apply rock dust to garden beds, around fruit trees to lawns, and to any soil where you grow food. Annual light applications of 50 to 100 pounds per 1,000 square feet maintain mineral levels after the initial heavy application. Results appear within the first growing season. Plants show improved vigor, deeper color, and enhanced pest resistance. By the second season, soil biology has responded to the mineral influx and the improvements compound. The food you harvest will contain minerals that store-bought food does not. You will taste the difference before any laboratory confirms it. Tomatoes that actually taste like tomatoes. Greens with depth and complexity instead of watery blandness. Fruit with sweetness that comes from mineral-driven sugar production rather than selective breeding for appearance. This is what food tasted like before we mined the minerals out of our soil and replaced them with 3 chemicals in a bag. In 1894, Julius Hensel proved that crushed rocks could replace synthetic fertilizer while producing more nutritious food. The chemical industry destroyed his book and his reputation. In 1943, German wartime scientists confirmed Hensel's findings when desperation forced them to try what industry had forbidden. The research was captured, filed, and forgotten by the victorious nations, whose own chemical industries needed it buried. In 2004, USDA data confirmed that American food had lost up to 76% of its mineral content since 1950. The finding was published, acknowledged, and ignored. In 2020, a peer-reviewed 10-year study confirmed that rock dust improves crop yields, restores soil minerals, and removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere simultaneously. The study changed nothing. 130 years of evidence. Exposed, exposed, exposed again. And still, you cannot buy rock dust at a garden center. Still, your agricultural extension agent has never mentioned it. Still, your soil grows food that cannot nourish the body that eats it. The rocks beneath your feet contain every mineral your soil has lost, every mineral your food no longer provides, every mineral your body purchases in supplement bottles because agriculture stopped providing it. The solution is not complex. It is not expensive. It is not hidden. It is just not profitable for the right people.